The worn leather seat by the window had seen better days, but it remained the most popular spot on the Line 7 tram. Regular passengers knew this, which made the current situation even stranger. Nobody sat there anymore. They left it open. Not because the transit authority had reserved it, but because everyone agreed it belonged to Pip. Pip was a dragon, a very small dragon, about the size of a coffee mug with copper scales that caught the morning light like pennies in a fountain. Every weekday at exactly 8:15 a.m., the little creature would hop aboard at Riverside Station, place a tiny cloth pouch on the fare scanner, and settle into that window seat for the ride downtown. Daniel Reed had been riding this tram for 3 years. He noticed patterns. The businessman who always forgot his umbrella on rainy days. The student who studied medical textbooks with yellow highlighter marks on every page. The elderly woman who knitted scarves for the homeless shelter. But Pip was different. Pip was impossible to ignore, yet somehow everyone had been ignoring the obvious question. Where were the owners? Daniel watched as the hatchling adjusted its position, pressing one small clawed foot against the glass to peer outside. The dragon's eyes were bright gold, tracking the streets with clear intelligence. When a cyclist swerved too close to the curb, Pip's head tilted in what looked like concern. When a flock of pigeons scattered from a park bench, the hatchling's tail twitched with interest. 2 months, that's how long Daniel had been seeing this pattern. At first, he assumed someone owned Pip. Dragons weren't common on Earth, but they existed. Refugees from a dying world called Drakkar had arrived 3 years ago, settling into human cities with varying degrees of success. Some humans welcomed them. Others protested. Most just tried to adjust to sharing their planet with beings who breathed fire and understood quantum physics better than most human scientists. But nobody accompanied this dragon. Nobody. Louise, the tram driver, made the usual announcements. Her voice crackled through old speakers that probably needed replacing a decade ago. Daniel stood and moved closer to the front, grabbing a overhead rail for balance as the tram rounded a corner. "Louise," he said quietly. The driver glanced at him in her wide mirror. She was in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that had seen every kind of passenger imaginable. "The dragon," Daniel continued. "How long has it been riding alone?" Louise smiled. "Pip, about 2 months now, maybe 10 weeks. Always pays exact fare too, better than half my human passengers." "But where does it go?" "Memorial District, 7 stops exactly, then off it hops every single time." Daniel looked back at Pip. The hatchling had noticed their conversation and was watching them with those intelligent golden eyes. Not threatening, just aware. "Does anyone know why?" Daniel asked. Louise shrugged. "Not my business to ask. Creature pays, creature rides, same as anyone else." An older man sitting near the front spoke up. His name was Gordon, and he worked maintenance at the library. "I followed it once. Just curious, you know. Went all the way to some animal clinic on Maple Street. Little thing squeezed right through the pet door like it owned the place." "An animal clinic," Daniel frowned. "Yep, Rosewood something, real small place. Looked pretty run down if I'm honest." Another passenger joined in. This was Patricia, who worked at the courthouse and had been riding this route for 5 years. "I've seen it too, always the same routine. Morning tram, 7 stops, straight to that clinic, then back again at 5:47 p.m., like clockwork." Daniel moved back toward Pip's seat. The dragon watched him approach but didn't seem alarmed. Up close, Daniel could see details he'd missed from farther away. The copper scales had tiny variations in color, creating patterns like tree rings. The wings, folded neatly against the small body, had membranes so thin they were almost transparent. The cloth pouch that held the fare money was tied with a careful knot that no animal should be able to manage. "Hey there," Daniel said softly. Pip made a sound. Not quite a chirp, not quite a hum. Something musical and pleasant that made Daniel think of wind chimes on a summer porch. "You understand me, don't you?" The dragon's head tilted. One small foot lifted and touched the window again, pointing at something outside. They were approaching Memorial District, 3 more stops. Daniel made a decision. Today was his day off. He'd planned to sleep late and catch up on laundry. Instead, he was going to follow a palm-sized dragon to an animal clinic and find out what was really happening. When Pip stood and moved toward the exit door, Daniel followed. Louise caught his eye in the mirror and nodded once. She'd been wondering too. They all had been. But Daniel was the one finally doing something about it. The tram stopped. The doors hissed open. Pip hopped down onto the sidewalk with surprising grace for something with wings. The hatchling paused, looked back at Daniel, then continued walking. Daniel stepped off the tram and let the doors close behind him. The vehicle pulled away, carrying Patricia and Gordon and all the other regulars who'd chosen to stay in their comfortable routine of not asking questions. But Daniel had always been the type to ask questions. It's what made him a decent social worker, even if the job was slowly burning him out. And this question felt important in a way he couldn't quite explain. Why does a dragon hatchling ride the city tram alone every single day? The answer was 7 blocks away, past the coffee shop that sold day-old pastries at discount prices, past the laundromat where Mrs. Chen was already loading industrial washers, past the barber shop that hadn't updated its pole in 30 years. Pip walked with purpose. Small claws clicked on concrete. Golden eyes stayed alert. And Daniel Reed followed, about to discover that some mysteries have answers far more beautiful than anyone expects. Memorial District smelled like old brick and yesterday's rain. The buildings here had character, which was a polite way of saying they desperately needed renovation. Faded awnings stretched over cramped storefronts. Cracked sidewalks buckled around tree roots that nobody had bothered to trim. This was the part of New Portland that tourists never photographed. Pip navigated the streets like a local resident. The dragon waited at crosswalks, watching the traffic signals with obvious understanding. When the white walking symbol appeared, the hatchling crossed. When it showed the red hand, Pip stayed put. Daniel found himself impressed. Most humans didn't follow traffic laws this carefully. They passed a bodega where the owner was stacking crates of produce outside. The man spotted Pip and waved. "Morning, little one." Pip chirped back, that same wind chime sound Daniel had heard earlier. "You know that dragon?" Daniel asked, stopping. The bodega owner nodded. His name tag read Carlos. "Sure, Pip comes by almost every day, sometimes stops for a drink from the water bowl I leave out. Polite little thing, never causes trouble." "Do you know where it's going?" Carlos pointed down the street. "Rosewood Animal Care, Dr. Oak's place. Been there 40 years, that clinic. Good man, the doctor, real good man." Daniel thanked him and continued following. 3 blocks later, he found it. The sign hung crooked above a narrow doorway, Rosewood Animal Care. The paint was fading. One window had a crack sealed with clear tape. The door itself looked solid, but the frame around it had started to rot. This was not a thriving business. Pip approached a small pet door installed at the bottom of the main entrance. The hatchling pushed through with practiced ease and disappeared inside. Daniel hesitated for just a moment, then opened the human-sized door and followed. The interior matched the exterior, worn linoleum floors, walls that probably used to be white but had faded to cream, a waiting area with mismatched chairs and outdated magazines. But it was clean, spotlessly clean. Someone took care of this place, even if they couldn't afford to update it. Behind the reception desk sat an elderly man with white hair and gentle eyes magnified by thick glasses. He looked up when Daniel entered, then smiled when he noticed Pip settling onto a heated pad near the desk. "Good morning, Pip," the old man said warmly. Then to Daniel, "Can I help you?" Daniel felt suddenly awkward. Yes, maybe, I'm Daniel Reed. I work in social services. I've been seeing this dragon on the tram and I was curious." The old man stood slowly, joints clearly protesting. He extended a weathered hand. "Dr. Henry Oakes. And yes, Pip rides the tram alone. I was worried about it at first, but the little one is remarkably capable." They shook hands. Daniel noticed the doctor's grip was still firm despite his age. "I don't understand," Daniel said. Why is a dragon hatchling coming to your clinic every day? Dr. Oaks moved around the desk, gesturing for Daniel to follow. That makes two of us. Pip just showed up one day about 2 months ago, came right through that pet door like we'd been expecting each other. I tried to shoo it away at first, thought maybe it was lost, but it kept coming back. They walked into the examination room. The space was small but well organized. Medical instruments lined the walls. An examination table dominated the center. Everything looked old but functional. Then I noticed something, Dr. Oaks continued. Pip wasn't here to be cared for, the little one was here. To help. As if on cue, the bell above the front door chimed. Dr. Oaks excused himself and returned to the reception area. Daniel heard a woman's voice, stressed and worried. Dr. Oaks, thank goodness you're open, it's Pepper. She won't stop shaking. Daniel peered around the corner. The woman held a small dog carrier. Inside, a chihuahua trembled violently, eyes wide with fear. The woman looked close to tears herself. Bring her back to the exam room, Dr. Oaks said calmly. That's when Daniel witnessed something remarkable. Pip immediately moved from the heated pad to the exam room, positioning itself near the examination table. When Dr. Oaks lifted the terrified chihuahua out of the carrier, the little dog started barking frantically. Pip made that wind chime sound again, soft, musical, almost hypnotic. The chihuahua stopped barking, its trembling eased, the dog's attention fixed entirely on the copper dragon. That's it, Pepper, Dr. Oaks murmured. You're safe here. While the doctor examined the dog, checking temperature and listening to heartbeat, Pip stayed exactly where Pepper could see it. The hatchling maintained eye contact with the chihuahua, continuing that soothing sound. The dog remained calm throughout the entire examination. She ate something she shouldn't have, Dr. Oaks finally determined. Nothing toxic, but it's upset her stomach badly. I'll give her something to help and she should feel better by tomorrow. He administered medication while Pip kept Pepper distracted. The whole process took maybe 10 minutes. Without the dragon's presence, Daniel suspected it would have taken much longer and been far more stressful for everyone involved. After the woman left with her calmer dog, Dr. Oaks returned to Daniel. You see, the old man said, Pip helps. I don't know how it knows what to do, but it does. Animals trust it. They calm down when Pip is near. Daniel watched the hatchling return to its heated pad, curling up contentedly. Where does it come from? Who owns it? I don't know, Dr. Oaks admitted. I've tried following after work, but my knees aren't what they used to be. Pip leaves every evening at 5:30, goes back to the tram stop and rides away. I assume it has a home somewhere, a family. The old man moved to a small coffee maker in the corner and poured himself a cup. His hands shook slightly. Daniel noticed other signs too, the exhaustion in the doctor's eyes, the way he winced when he bent to reach supplies, the dust on the reception desk that suggested no one had cleaned it in days. Are you running this clinic alone? Daniel asked. Dr. Oaks sighed. My assistant quit 3 months ago. I couldn't afford to keep paying her. Business has been slow. Most people go to the new fancy clinic on the north side now. They have all the modern equipment. I just have experience and stubbornness. And Pip's, Daniel added. The old man smiled. Yes, and Pip, the little one's been a blessing, makes the days less lonely, makes the work possible, honestly. I don't know what I'd do without that dragon's help. Daniel looked at Pip, seeing the hatchling with new eyes. This wasn't just a curious mystery about public transportation. This was something deeper, something that mattered. Daniel spent the entire day at Rosewood Animal Care. He told himself it was research for his social work cases, though he knew that was only partly true. The real reason was simpler. He wanted to understand what Pip was doing here. The morning brought a steady stream of patients. A cat with an ear infection, a rabbit that had stopped eating, an elderly beagle with arthritis. Each time, Daniel watched Pip work. The hatchling had developed a system. When Dr. Oaks called a patient back, Pip would position itself strategically. For nervous animals, the dragon stayed visible but at a distance, making those calming wind chime sounds. For aggressive animals, Pip remained out of sight but close enough that its presence seemed to ease tension. For animals in pain, the hatchling would curl up nearby, radiating warmth from its small body. But Pip did more than provide emotional support. The dragon had learned the clinic's routines. When Dr. Oaks needed gauze from the lower cabinet, Pip retrieved it before being asked. When an instrument rolled toward the floor, the hatchling caught it with surprising speed. When the phone rang and the doctor's hands were full, Pip would hop up to the desk and tap a button with its snout, activating the speaker function. How long did it take Pip to learn all this? Daniel asked during a brief quiet moment. Dr. Oaks refilled a water bowl, which Pip promptly used. Maybe a week. The little one watches everything, remembers everything. Dragons are supposed to be highly intelligent, but seeing it in person is something else entirely. A young woman arrived. With a cardboard box, inside 6 kittens mewed desperately. I found them behind the grocery store, she explained. No mother anywhere, I don't know what to do. Dr. Oaks examined each kitten carefully. They were perhaps 3 weeks old, eyes barely open and severely dehydrated. They need formula every 2 hours, he said quietly. Round-the-clock care for at least a week. Can you take them? The young woman asked hopefully. The old doctor hesitated. Daniel saw the conflict on his face. Taking in 6 orphaned kittens meant endless work, and Dr. Oaks was already stretched impossibly thin. But refusing meant the kittens would likely die. I'll take them, Dr. Oaks finally said. After the woman left, Pip immediately moved to the box of kittens. The hatchling climbed inside carefully, settling among the tiny creatures. Within moments, the desperate mewing quieted. The kittens crawled toward Pip's warmth, piling against the dragon's copper scales. Well, Dr. Oaks said, surprised. That solves one problem, they need to stay warm. Throughout the afternoon, Pip remained with the kittens except when needed for other patients. The hatchling took its job seriously, adjusting position when one kitten squirmed too far away, making soft sounds when they cried, maintaining a steady temperature that kept them comfortable. Daniel helped where he could. He answered the phone. He swept floors. He reorganized supplies that had been shoved randomly into cabinets. It felt good to do simple physical work instead of drowning in case files and bureaucracy. Around 3 in the afternoon, Daniel noticed something concerning. Dr. Oaks missed a step and caught himself against the wall. The old man's face had gone pale. Are you okay? Daniel asked quickly. Just tired, Dr. Oaks insisted, but his hand trembled as he reached for his coffee cup. When did you last eat? The doctor thought about it. Breakfast yesterday, I think. Yesterday? Daniel stared at him. You've been working for over 24 hours without food. I had a cat emergency late last night. Then morning appointments started. Time gets away from me. Daniel made a decision. I'm going to get food, real food, don't argue. He left before Dr. Oaks could protest and returned 20 minutes later with soup, sandwiches, and fruit from a nearby deli. He practically forced the old man to sit and eat. While they ate, Dr. Oaks talked about his late wife, who had helped run the clinic for 30 years, about watching the neighborhood change, new clinics opening with fancy equipment and corporate backing, about the families who still came to him because they trusted him, even though he couldn't offer the latest technology. I thought about closing, Dr. Oaks admitted quietly. About 6 weeks ago, I was exhausted, broke, couldn't see the point of continuing, then Pip showed up. He looked at the dragon, still curled protectively around the box of kittens. That little one gave me a reason to keep going, something to look forward to each morning. And the help, well, it made everything possible again. I don't understand why Pip chose me, but I'm grateful. Daniel felt something heavy settle in his chest. This was exactly the kind of situation he dealt with in his social work, just from an unexpected angle. An elderly person struggling alone. A valuable community resource failing due to lack of support. a need being met in the most unlikely way by a palm-sized dragon that rode public transportation. The afternoon appointments continued. Pip moved between helping Dr. Oaks and caring for the kittens with perfect timing. The hatchling seemed to have an internal clock, knowing exactly when each task needed attention. At 5:30 p.m., Pip gently extracted itself from the kitten box. The little creatures protested with tiny mews, but Pip had placed them in a tight pile that would retain warmth. The dragon moved to Dr. Oaks and made a soft, questioning sound. "Yes, I know," the old man said. "Time for you to go home. Thank you for today, Pip. Same time tomorrow." The hatchling chirped once, then headed for the pet door. Daniel stood quickly. "Dr. Oaks, I'd like to follow Pip home, find out where it lives. Would that be okay?" "I've been wondering that for 2 months," the doctor admitted. "Please, yes, tell me tomorrow what you find out." Daniel grabbed his jacket and followed the copper dragon out into the early evening air. This time, he was determined to get answers. Not just about where Pip lived, but about why this remarkable creature had chosen to help a struggling veterinarian in a forgotten corner of the city. The tram stop was 3 blocks away. Pip walked with purpose, and Daniel stayed close behind, ready to discover what no one else had managed to learn. Where does a helpful dragon go at the end of each day? The evening tram was less crowded than the morning route. Pip boarded at Memorial District, placed that familiar cloth pouch on the fare scanner, and settled into the window seat. Daniel sat several rows back, trying not to be obvious about following a dragon the size of a house cat. 7 stops passed slowly. The sun dropped toward the horizon, painting the city in shades of amber and rose. Pip watched the scenery with those bright golden eyes, occasionally shifting position to see something that caught its attention. When the tram reached Riverside Station, Pip hopped down and began walking. Daniel followed at a respectful distance. They moved through areas he rarely visited. The buildings here were older, more industrial. Warehouses and storage facilities lined the streets. Fewer people walked these sidewalks. After 15 minutes, Pip stopped at a large converted warehouse. The building had clearly been repurposed. Fresh paint covered old brick. New windows had been installed in spaces that once held loading doors. A hand-painted sign above the entrance read, "Harmony Project Community Center." Pip pushed through a small door at ground level, one clearly designed for creatures of various sizes. Daniel approached the main entrance and pulled open the heavy door. Inside was a revelation. The warehouse had been transformed into a massive open space filled with life. Beings of different species moved through the area, talking, working, cooking, playing. Daniel recognized some from news reports. Dracorians like Pip, though much larger. Centaurians with their distinctive 4 legs and elongated torsos. Bellans with their plant-like skin. Yalans with their multiple arms. Dozens of species, all living together in this converted industrial space. Children of various species played in a corner under careful supervision. Adults worked at tables, some cooking, others crafting or repairing items. The walls displayed artwork from different cultures. The air smelled like a combination of cooking spices Daniel couldn't identify. A full-grown Dracorian approached Daniel. This dragon was easily 8 feet long, with scales that shifted from deep gray to silver depending on the light. The creature moved with grace despite its size. "You followed Pip home," the dragon said. The voice was melodious, neither clearly male nor female to Daniel's ears. "I did," Daniel admitted. "I'm Daniel Reed. I work in social services. I've been curious about where Pip goes every day." "I am Ash, Pip's parent." The dragon's head lowered to Daniel's eye level. "Come, we should talk." Ash led Daniel to a quieter area near the back of the warehouse. They sat at a worn table surrounded by mismatched chairs. Pip appeared moments later, climbing onto the table and settling between them. "You want to know why Pip rides the tram to help an old veterinarian?" Ash said. "Yes, and how a hatchling learned to navigate the city alone." Ash's tail curled thoughtfully. "Dracorians are empathic. We sense emotional distress in other beings. It is not a choice. It is biological. We feel the pain of others as clearly as you might feel heat from a fire. All Dracorians? Daniel asked. Yes, it is why we struggled on our home world. We felt the suffering of our dying planet, and it nearly destroyed us mentally. When we came to Earth as refugees, we hoped for peace. Instead, we found a world full of pain we had no way to address. Pip made a soft sound. Ash gently touched the hatchling with one clawed foot. Pip hatched 6 months ago, Ash continued. From the beginning, this little one's empathic sense was strong, unusually strong. 2 months ago, Pip became distressed, would not eat, would not sleep, kept trying to leave the community center. The hatchling sensed Dr. Oaks, Daniel realized. Yes, I finally followed Pip and discovered the source. An old human, exhausted and sad, working himself to death in a small clinic. Pip wanted to help, needed to help. To ignore such distress would have been torture for my child. Ash explained how they worked together to make it possible. The dragon parent taught Pip about human transportation systems, about money and fare payment, about traffic rules and safety. Other refugees at the community center contributed coins and small bills for daily tram fare. We could have visited together, Ash said. But the doctor is afraid of large dragons. Many humans are. Pip's size makes the hatchling non-threatening, approachable. The small one can help in ways I cannot. Daniel absorbed this information. Around them, the community center buzzed with activity. He watched a Bellin carefully tending to window boxes full of herbs. A Yalin repaired what looked like a bicycle with quick, precise movements of multiple hands. A group of mixed species children laughed over some game that required a ball and complicated rules. How many refugees live here? Daniel asked. 43 currently, Ash replied. More arrive monthly. Earth accepted us when our worlds failed, but integration is difficult. We want to contribute to help, but we do not understand human systems. Your laws, your paperwork, your ways of organizing society. Many of us try to help in our own ways and sometimes cause problems unintentionally. Daniel thought about this. He worked in social services. He knew how complicated human bureaucracy could be for humans, let alone for beings from entirely different cultures. Pip helps Dr. Oaks because the hatchling senses his pain, Daniel said slowly. But there's no legal framework for it, no official recognition. If something went wrong, if Pip got hurt or caused an accident, there could be serious consequences. I know, Ash said quietly. But what is the alternative? To let my child suffer from feeling Dr. Oak's despair and being unable to respond? To let an old man work himself to death because he has no help? These options are also terrible. Pip chirped and touched Daniel's hand with one small foot. The copper scales felt warm, almost comforting. Daniel looked into those golden eyes and saw intelligence, compassion, and genuine concern. Dr. Oaks doesn't know about this place, Daniel said. He doesn't know where Pip comes from. We thought it better to remain unknown, Ash explained. Humans are not always comfortable with us. The doctor might refuse Pip's help if he knew the full situation. Daniel considered everything he'd learned. A dragon hatchling traveling across the city alone every day to help a struggling veterinarian. A community of refugees trying to find their place on a foreign world. An old man too proud or too tired to ask for the help he desperately needed. This wasn't just about Pip anymore. This was about something bigger, something that needed more than a small dragon and good intentions to solve properly. I think I can help, Daniel said finally. Really help, not just Pip and Dr. Oaks, but all of you, but I'll need time to work out the details. Ash studied him carefully. Why would you do this? Because it's my job, Daniel said, and because it's the right thing to do. Daniel's apartment was small and cluttered with case files, but his laptop worked perfectly. He spent the entire night researching, making phone calls despite the late hour and drafting proposals. By sunrise, he had consumed 4 cups of coffee and filled a notebook with plans. The problems were clear. Pip was operating in a legal gray area. Dr. Oaks needed financial support his failing clinic couldn't generate. The Harmony Project refugees wanted to contribute to their community but lacked the knowledge to do so within human systems. Three separate issues that Daniel realized had one interconnected solution. His first call at 8 a.m. went to Beverly Park, a former colleague who now worked with a nonprofit focused on veterinary care in underserved communities. "Beverly, I need your help with something unusual," Daniel began. 2 hours later, Beverly sat in Daniel's apartment, reviewing documents and shaking her head in amazement. "A dragon hatchling has been volunteering at a clinic for 2 months, and nobody reported this." "The neighborhood loves Pip," Daniel explained. "They saw a small creature helping an old man who needed it. Why would they report that?" "Because it's legally complicated," Beverly said, but she was smiling. "However, it's also exactly the kind of story that could bring attention to Dr. Oak's clinic, and attention means funding opportunities." She pulled out her own laptop and started typing. "There's a grant program specifically for rural and economically disadvantaged veterinary practices. Dr. Oakes would qualify easily. If he applies within the next month, he could receive up to $50,000 for equipment, repairs, and operational costs." "That solves the clinic's financial problem," Daniel said. "But what about Pip?" Beverly thought for a moment. "Service animal certification. We'd need to create a new category for non-traditional species, but the framework exists. If Pip can pass basic behavioral testing and Dr. Oakes formally requests the hatchling as an assistance animal, we could make it legal." "Would that work for a dragon?" "Why not? We certify miniature horses as service animals. We certify capuchin monkeys. The law cares about function, not species. If Pip performs a legitimate service, helps patients remain calm, and operates safely in public spaces, then yes, it could work." Daniel made more calls. He contacted the city's animal control department. He reached out to the transit authority about creating identification cards for non-human passengers. He spoke with a lawyer who specialized in disability rights and service animal law. Each conversation took time and required careful explanation. Many people were skeptical. Some laughed. But slowly, piece by piece, Daniel built a structure that could support what Pip was already doing. 3 days later, he visited the Harmony Project again. Ash listened carefully as Daniel outlined his plan. Other refugees gathered around, curious about the conversation. Daniel noticed a Centaurian who kept adjusting its translation device to better understand. "The key is legitimacy," Daniel explained. "Right now, Pip helps Dr. Oakes through goodwill and luck, but that's fragile. One complaint, one accident, one bureaucrat having a bad day, and everything collapses. We need official recognition." "How?" Ash asked. "We create a pilot program, the Interspecies Community Bridge. It would connect refugees who want to help with human communities that need assistance. But we do it properly, with training, legal protection, and coordination." Ayalan spoke up. Her voice came through a translation device that made her words sound mechanical. "We try to help already, but we make mistakes. We do not understand human customs." "Exactly," Daniel said. "That's why we need structure, training programs that teach Earth customs and laws, coordination with human organizations that know what help is actually needed, legal frameworks that protect both refugees and the humans they assist." He spread out documents on a table. "Here's what I've put together so far. Dr. Oak's clinic can receive grant funding if he applies properly. I'll help him with the paperwork. Pip can become a certified therapy animal with official identification. The Tram Authority has agreed to issue service animal passes for non-humans who complete basic safety training." Ash's eyes widened. Pip would be legal. Completely legal, protected under the same laws as any other service animal. Abelin approached the table. His plant-like skin shifted colors as he communicated through a translation collar. "I grow food in my community gardens, but sometimes humans tell me to stop. They say I need permits." "We can get you permits," Daniel said. "We can connect you with community garden organizations that need experienced growers, Make your work official." The Centaurian who'd been listening closely spoke next. "I fix things, machines, structures. I see broken playground equipment and repair it at night. But I frighten people because I am large." "We partner you with the Parks Department," Daniel explained. "They're always looking for skilled maintenance workers. You could help officially during the day with proper identification." Over the next hour, more refugees shared what they had been doing quietly, often at night, to help the human communities around them. Each story revealed both genuine desire to contribute and the problems that came from working outside official systems. Daniel took notes on everything: each refugee's skills, each problem they'd encountered, each community need they'd tried to address. "This is bigger than I thought," he admitted to Ash. "You're not just a community center, you're an entire workforce of skilled beings who want to help but don't know how." "We left our dying worlds with little except our abilities," Ash said quietly. "We want to be useful on this one." Daniel felt something shift in his chest. For 3 years, he'd been burning out on social work, drowning in bureaucracy and hopelessness. But this was different. This was connecting people who needed help with beings who wanted to help. This was building bridges instead of filling out forms. "I need to quit my job," Daniel said suddenly. Ash tilted their head. "Why?" "Because this needs someone full-time, someone who understands both human systems and refugee needs, someone who can make this work properly." He looked around at the gathered refugees. "I think I can get funding to create an actual organization, make this my full-time work instead of something I do on the side." "You would do this?" Ash asked. "I would love to do this," Daniel said honestly. Pip, who had been curled up quietly nearby, chirped approval. The small dragon hopped onto the table and touched Daniel's hand with a warm copper foot. Everything started with a small dragon riding a tram to help one old veterinarian. Now it was becoming something much larger, something that could change how humans and refugees lived together in this shared world. 3 months changed everything. The Line 7 tram rolled through New Portland under clear morning skies. Pip sat in the usual window seat, but now the hatchling wore a small vest. The fabric was deep blue with an official patch that read, "Certified Therapy Animal." The vest had been custom made by a Yallen seamstress at the Harmony Project, sized perfectly for a palm-sized dragon. Daniel sat 3 rows back, reviewing notes. On his tablet, next to him sat a Centaurian named Reed, heading to Lincoln Elementary School where he taught math to 3rd graders twice a week. The children loved him. Their test scores had improved dramatically. Across the aisle, a Bellin named Moss traveled to her shift at the Community Garden Cooperative. She taught dozens of humans how to grow vegetables in poor soil using techniques from her home world. The waiting list for her classes now stretched 3 months. Louise, the tram driver, smiled at her diverse passengers. She'd seen the changes firsthand. What started as one small dragon riding alone had become something the whole city talked about. The tram company had even updated their policies, creating clear guidelines for non-human passengers. Other routes now had similar stories. Dr. Oak's clinic looked different. New paint covered the exterior. The cracked window had been replaced. Inside, modern equipment sat alongside the old familiar tools. 2 veterinary students volunteered 3 days a week, getting practical experience while helping with the workload. The waiting room was full when Pip arrived. A nervous poodle, a cat with an injured paw, a rabbit that needed vaccinations. Each owner greeted Pip warmly. The dragon had become famous in Memorial District. Parents pointed the hatchling out to their children. Businesses kept water bowls outside their doors for Pip to use. Dr. Oakes looked 10 years younger. He'd gained weight. His hands no longer trembled from exhaustion, and he wasn't working alone anymore. "Morning, Pip," he said as the dragon came through the pet door. "We've got 6 appointments before lunch, ready." Pip chirped and took position at the heated pad, which was now officially labeled Therapy Station with a small sign. The grant funding had saved the clinic, but more than that, the attention from Pip's story had brought customers back. People who'd switched to the fancy North Side clinic returned, preferring Dr. Oak's personal care and his remarkable dragon assistant. The clinic was actually profitable now, actually thriving. Daniel spent his morning at City Hall. He'd quit his social work position 6 weeks ago and launched the Interspecies Community Bridge as a formal nonprofit organization. Funding had come from multiple sources: government grants, private donations, and support from refugee advocacy groups. Today he was presenting the 6-month results to the city council. The numbers were impressive. 43 refugees now had official volunteer positions. Community gardens had tripled their produce output. Crime in 3 neighborhoods had dropped 15% since refugee patrol volunteers started walking evening shifts. Elementary schools reported improved test scores in math and science with alien teaching assistants. But the real measure wasn't numbers, it was stories. Like the Torsian artist teaching free painting classes to at-risk youth, or the Murren medic training community members in first aid, or the Yallen engineer who'd repaired broken playground equipment in 12 parks, making them safe for children again. The council members listened attentively. Some had been skeptical 3 months ago. Now they were asking how to expand the program. "We're still learning," Daniel admitted. "There are challenges, cultural misunderstandings, communication barriers, but the refugees want to contribute and our communities need their help. The bridge goes both ways." A council member raised her hand. "What about the dragon, the one that started all this?" Daniel smiled. "Pip still rides the tram every day, still helps Dr. Oakes. The hatchling is officially certified now, completely legal, and Pip's story inspired everything else. People saw that a dragon could help a struggling clinic, and they started asking what other help they were missing." That evening, Daniel rode the 5:47 p.m. tram back to Riverside Station. Pip sat in the window seat, vest neatly in place, watching the city pass by. The hatchling looked content. At the Harmony Project, preparations were underway for a celebration. The nonprofit's official launch party. Refugees and humans mingled in the converted warehouse, sharing food from a dozen different worlds. Children of various species played together in the corner, their laughter universal despite coming from different throats. Ash found Daniel near the food tables. "You did this," the dragon said. "You took what Pip started and made it real." "Pip did this," Daniel corrected. "I just helped organize it." "No," Ash's voice was firm. "Pip helped one human, you helped all of us. You saw beyond a small dragon on a tram and understood what it meant, that we want to belong here, that we have gifts to share." Dr. Oakes arrived at the party an hour later, moving slowly but steadily. Pip immediately rushed to greet him, chirping. Excitedly, the old veterinarian laughed, a sound Daniel had never heard before meeting the dragon. "Look at all this," Dr. Oakes said, gazing around the warehouse. "All because a little dragon decided to help an old man." "All because you accepted that help," Daniel replied. "You could have refused, could have been suspicious or afraid, but you let Pip in." News crews had asked to cover the story. Daniel had agreed to one interview with Pip, Ash, and Dr. Oakes all present. The piece would air tomorrow, spreading the story across the entire region. Other cities had already reached out, asking how to replicate the program. As the party continued, Daniel watched Pip move through the crowd. The hatchling greeted everyone, human and alien alike, with that same gentle warmth. This small copper dragon had somehow seen what others missed. That loneliness and need existed everywhere. That help could come from unexpected places, that the size of someone's heart mattered more than the size of their body. The Line 7 tram would continue its route tomorrow. Pip would board at 8:15 a.m., pay exact fare, and ride 7 stops to Memorial District. But now the hatchling wouldn't be alone. Now there would be others traveling to help, to contribute, to build bridges between worlds. All because one small dragon decided that an old man's sadness mattered enough to do something about it. Sometimes the most important journeys start with a single tram ride. Sometimes the biggest changes begin with the smallest acts of kindness. And sometimes What looks like a mystery is actually just love finding a way to travel across a city 7 stops at a time, every single day. Pip curled up near the party's edge, copper scales gleaming under warm lights, content in knowing that helping wasn't just allowed now. It was celebrated. It was official. It was exactly what this shared world needed.